So in economics, we are a soft social science, right? Which means that we never get to actually establish any laws, right? You know how there's like a law of gravity in physics and stuff like that? We don't get that. There's no laws. So we look at how two or more variables interact with each other, and we create these things called theories. Which are simplified representations of how two or more variables interact with each other. We know that a good theory is simple enough to understand and complex enough to capture the key features. As my dissertation advisor told me many times as I was working on my research, all models are toy models. There's always going to be some sort of simplifying assumption. There's no way to accurately represent every single element of human decision making. And the way that economists test these theories out are they use models to test them. However, for this course, when I talk about models, I'm talking essentially about theories. So we can use these terms interchangeably, and the book uses them interchangeably as well. So we are not going to differentiate between a model and a theory. We're just going to say that they're the same thing. And I'm sure some of you are like, oh, Dr. McCarthy, I would love an example of a model, right? It's one thing to learn about what a model is. It's another thing to actually learn a model. So that's what we're going to get into in this next part. We're going to learn the simplest model of economics ever, called the circular flow diagram. It is named that for obvious reasons, which we will see in a little bit. And it is one of those models that is an illustrative model. It teaches you what a model is and how to use a model, but we're really not going to use it throughout the rest of the class in the same way that we're going to use things like the supply and demand model. All right, circular flow. Blue, yellow. So the circular flow diagram shows how two entities interact with one another. And these two entities that we're talking about are going to be households. Again, there's that word that economists love. We love it because it's so versatile, right? A household could be one person, it could be 4 people, it could be 10 people, it could be a lot of people. And then firms, right? And a firm is just any type of business, just another term for businesses. And so we're looking at how these two economic agents interact with each other. And what we do know is we know that households buy things from firms, right? Households purchase goods and services from firms. So we have goods and services, which I don't think we got to this last time, but goods and services we're going to abbreviate by G and S for the rest of this class, just because we say it way too much. There's way too many times. And then also, whenever I say goods, 9.5 times out of 10, I am talking about goods and services. Unless I specifically say only goods, right? That's when I'm talking about just goods. But for the most part, economists talk about goods and services as if they're interchangeable terms, which, is not being as detailed and exact as we could be, but, it is what it is. And then how do they get these goods and services, right? Do they just go to a store and just say, I would like 3 dozen eggs, right? No, they have to pay for these goods and services. And so we have got payment going from the households for those goods and services. So the households are paying the firms for those goods and services, right? So this is the top half of our circular flow. But where are these households getting this money? Well, these households are getting this money by providing labor services to the firms. And then what do those firms do? Do they just take that labor and say, thank you so much? No, they have to remunerate those workers with wages, salaries, and benefits. So we show that households receives the goods and services, and they pay firms for them. And then in the labor market, households provide labor and receive payment from the firms through wages, salaries, and benefits. So we see that this bottom section here is going to be our labor market. That is hard to see, apologies. And the top section, let's try a little lighter highlighter, is going to be our goods and services market. So again, it's a very simplified depiction of reality. For one get-out-of-jail-free card, what is one of the crucial elements missing here that I talked about at the beginning of class? How is this model a toy model? What is the biggest simplification that's happening within this model?
Talking about like other expenses such as healthcare, taxes, all that doesn't go back into goods and services.
Very good. There's no government. There's no government, and that's a big player in both the firms and the households and the way in which these flows align themselves. Absolutely. That's a good point. Yep.
There's no outside market.
Very good. Yes, that's the one I was looking for. There's no international trade, right? So we know that international trade has gone from 1 to 5% to 15 to 20% just broadly in emerging and advanced countries. We know that most of the stuff that we produce is produced abroad and imported, right? So this model is a simplification of the real model. It doesn't have government. It doesn't have international trade in there. And just because I like the word, again, you're not going to need to know this, but I think it's a cool word. The word for when and of course now I'm not going to know if I spelled it correctly, but the word for when a country does not participate in international trade at all is an autarky. Just a cute little, I don't know, random trivia that, again, you don't need to know on the test, but I think it's a neat word. I like words. All right, questions on circular flow. If you guys would just stop by and just give me your names on the way out, and I'll make sure to give you those get out of jail free cards. Good job. Questions on circular flow. Okay. There'll be some questions on the reading quiz and the exam, but honestly, these should be kind of gimme questions, Like, we teach you this model just to kind of ease you into the notion of models, but there's no real, there's no real synthesis that I can ask you to do with this, you know what I mean? I can just ask you to analyze and explain it. So you don't have to go too deep into it is what I'm trying to say. All right.